FNAF's nightmare animatronics are something else. Being the scariest versions of the animatronic was already a feat, especially after the disappointment that the community had with FNAF 3, but sometimes being the scariest still isn't enough, and you know what? That's definitely the case with this community. So the fans took to deviant art and amino and more to create even more unholy abominations of probably the scariest nightmare animatronic, Fredbear. And those beautiful monstrosities are what we're exploring today. Let's do it. In the 10, Shadow Fredbear. Shadow Fredbear is one of the two primary antagonists in Final Night's 2 Sins of the Father. Shadow Fredbear is almost perfectly intact, only burnt black in color. He has a few rips on his body and is missing his left hand, but I mean the area around his mouth appears to be slightly torn as well, revealing a majority of his endoskeleton teeth. But other than that, the dude's fairly intact. His teeth and eyes also glow, which makes it easier to see, I guess, but like imagine if this animatronic had gums, okay? That would be, whew, that would probably be the scariest thing I've ever seen. The absolute monstrosity that would have been created just by giving this Shadow Freddy gums is terrifying, okay? Like, every time you give something big gums, it makes it scarier. I don't know why. My genius is sometimes petrifying. But nonetheless, this is still creepy without the gums, especially because this dude is so powerful that he actually replaces most of the other animatronics on Night 5 of Final Nights 2. But, you know, if you saw other Final Nights lists, y'all already know about Shadow Freddy. In at 9, BREADBEAR. Yes, this is a thing. BREADBEAR is an animatronic coming from the Day Shift at Freddy series who was created by Dave by modifying a Fredbear suit. The character appears in Day Shifts at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. BREADBEAR's appearance is oddly similar to normal Fredbear, albeit this one is wider. He's a golden colored animatronic bear wearing a purple top hat and bow tie, and 2 black and white buttons along his chest. He has a gray metallic looking eyes, thicker arms and legs, he's kind of a chonky boy, and a squarish brown nose. Okay, his small brown pupils, small white teeth, round ears, with the insides being like lighter shade. You know how you color ears on like animals and stuff, right? And then like cartoons, that's what this is. And a very circular shaped stomach with a couple of brown shades. He has ribs across his feet joints and like his arm joints, like at the elbow. He also appears for real when Dave modifies an empty Fredbear suit and unleashes it during the Sting operation on Friday, in which, depending on which route you actually took, it either will attempt to kill Jack, it will die, or it will just destroy the pizzeria joint and then set itself on fire. Love that. And it ate FREDTRAP. To be honest, I searched this up just for the hell of it, and there are actually Fredbear versions of Springtrap. And you know what? I should have figured that was going to be a thing, okay? FREDTRAP is exactly what you'd expect. Springtrap's look on a yellow Freddy animatronic. The designs are actually really well made and honestly are scarier than normal Springtrap to me. And for some reason, I guess I just think that bears are scarier than bunnies, which I guess makes sense. I mean, like, I think that Scott used the Spring Bonnie suit to be William's kill suit because of how scared Scott himself was of Bonnie because of like the nightmares from the first game because of the jump scare. But again, that could just be me speculating. I mean, it absolutely is, but I mean, like, it's kind of like educated speculating. There are even more rundown versions and even scrap versions of FREDTRAP, and honestly, they're haunting, especially when you don't think about the fact that it would still be William inside the suit being kept alive by the spirit of his dead son. You know the story. I mean, you're probably gonna fight me on it being his son, but you know what I mean. FREDTRAP is definitely one of the more unique versions of Fredbear I saw for this list, and you know what? I'm pretty damn impressed. And at 7, Withered Nightmare. Now, there aren't many versions of Withered Nightmare, mostly because it's such an obscure thing to search, but honestly, I'm surprised that there were even a couple of these. Yet, somehow, Withered Nightmare makes Nightmare even scarier, despite him literally being the embodiment of death. With missing exosuit and the slightly transparent nature of the animatronic, plus the exposed bits and missing limbs, you know what? It always makes these characters a little bit more unsettling. Throw onto that Nightmare, the scariest animatronic in the series that literally will consume you if you fail to stop him. He is literally the embodiment of death. That's what the whole point of this series, this game is. If you lose to Nightmare, you die. Even if you win against Nightmare, you still die, but like still, okay? Even, especially with like the exposed brain, like man, can we move on? I don't like this one. This is not this. No thank you. There's a reason I didn't play FNAF 4 or any other one. Who said that? In its sixth, Scrap Fredbear. Scrap Fredbear is probably the most unique design for a scrap animatronic that I've actually seen, okay? Most of the scrap animatronics have Scrap Baby's claw as a main feature. However, this one is incredibly horrific in the best way. One has a buzzsaw for a hand, which is extremely badass, but the others have severe withering on legs and around the stomach, and they all include the stomach mouth, of course, since, you know, Nightmare Fredbear, it has a stomach mouth, and is also the scariest Nightmare animatronic aside from, again, the one that's literally called Nightmare, which is just inverted Nightmare Fredbear anyway. But the big withered left hand and the stars coming off of him, they make him look far more menacing. Like if Nightmare Fredbear was an elementary school teacher who just loved giving out gold stars but then corrupted whatever these incredibly underprepared kids would have had to deal with. Okay, like I came out of high school not knowing anything about actual life, but then like you expect a group of 5 kids to take down some horrific otherworldly being. Like who are they supposed to be, Phineas and Ferb? Halfway through into number 5, Stylized Nightmare Fredbear. There are so many different versions of Stylized Nightmare Fredbear, I love it so much. I'm pretty sure the term stylized just means converting the character into your style of art, which makes the variety incredible to look at. From more cartoony but still horrific versions to a Frankenstein's monster looking version that will actually haunt me for the rest of my life. If this was in the Halloween DLC, I don't think that I'd actually be as into this as I am. Some of the teeth are actual monsters within themselves. Some are looking like monster animatronics, and then some are looking like they're gonna crawl out of my screen after calling me and saying that I have 7 days, okay? Nightmare Fredbear is one of the scariest animatronics to me, and honestly, I think that if I ever had to play that level in FNAF VR, I would actually piss myself, like not even joking. Okay, that's why I don't play FNAF VR. That's why I haven't actually tried to complete it. So I don't have to do that level and that level only. I also think that I'd be trash at the plush baby game, and I don't like being jump scared. But you know, it's mostly the bear thing, okay? It's mostly the Fredbear. Okay, fear is bad. Why do we like being scared? In a fourth, Sinister Fredbear. Ah yes, this Freddy versions list, or I guess Fredbear versions list, was missing a Sinister animatronic. So here we are with Sinister Fredbear. Had the game released, Sinister Fredbear would have been one of the most terrifying animatronics in Sinister Turmoil. Okay, it would have been a fan game. I don't know what makes this character so horrifying for me, but nevertheless, holy sweet niblets, Miley Ray Stewart, is this thing going to scare you? While there are really only 1 or 2 pictures of Sinister Fredbear, you can already get a sense for how terrifying this animatronic would have been. With the classic Sinister teeth, which at this point are basically signature, and more toy animatronic-like appearance for his casing, this guy would have made the game unplayable for me, okay? I already try and avoid Nightmare Fredbear in FNAF VR, like I said, because I don't want to deal with him. So Sinister Fredbear would have been a deal breaker, okay? And I didn't even know he was meant to be in the game. That would have been a sweet surprise. Close to the end in number 3, Paranormal Fredbear. Paranormal Fredbear is not actually what I first anticipated. I thought that it was going to be closer to Nightmare with a translucent body and more of a wisp mother-like appearance, but instead, Paranormal Fredbear by Taurus 4 on DeviantArt is terrifying. In essence, a Reaper Fredbear, this paranormal version is how I feel a Reaper Fredbear would look in the Final Night series. With endoskeleton bits holding together its melted and torn parts of not only the face but the body as well, and the movement it's just jerky enough to make you question it. You know, the long sharp claws can easily cut through flesh, and the teeth, while not sharp, okay, will definitely set you on edge. Get it? They're nearly human, but not quite human enough, which makes it terrifying, okay? It's like the original Sonic CGI. Not to mention the paranormal spring trap he made, but I gotta save that for another list. But ultimately, in number 2, Slasher Fredbear. Slasher Fredbear by DeviantArt user PlayStation Jedi is an unholy abomination that must be stopped, but also in the best way. I've talked about the Slasher animatronics before, particularly in an older Bonnie alternate versions list. However, Slasher Fredbear is so much worse, okay? He may not have a shotgun axe guitar, but oh my god. Let me read the description of this animatronic in the words of the creator PlayStation Jedi himself. Quote, The largest and strongest of the Slasher animatronics, Slasher Fredbear is an unstoppable force with enhanced strength and durability. Fredbear is capable of smashing through walls, withstanding lots of punishment, and grabbing heavy objects then throwing them across the room. While Fredbear uses his great strength to pick up and rip people in half, if he needs a quick kill, he can extend a blade mounted on his wrist to cut through people like butter, or if he needs a ranged attack, he can use his 2 wrist-mounted light machine guns. Fredbear can also switch between these weapons on the fly, either using 2 LMGs or 2 blades, or 1 on each wrist. What the actual LMG, by the way, stands for light machine gun if you couldn't already infer that, but Jesus ever-loving Christ. Jesus ever-loving W.H. Christ the Third. Why? This is going to make me cry myself to sleep. Just when I was getting back to sleeping again normally. Not to mention the spikes that are also covering his body. And finally, in at number 1, HELLMARE. This HELLMARE version of Nightmare Fredbear is probably the absolute single most horrific FNAF-oriented thing I have ever seen. Like, I'm going to have to make a whole list about the HELLMARE animatronics because this is the craziest ever. How did I not know about these before? Okay, HELLMARE Fredbear can only be described as a true nightmarish abomination from hell, and you know what? The name is accurate. This thing has not 1, not 2, but 3 separate mouths, okay, 2 heads, and not only does it have 2 heads, those heads are reversed from one another. So one head is on top and the other head is on the bottom turned upside down. So it can spin its head 180 degrees and give you either Nightmare or Nightmare Fredbear. Yeah, this dude is both animatronics combined. Even Hannah Montana doesn't approve this best of both worlds. Once I noticed it, I might have actually peed my pants a little, okay? But 2 heads, 2 sets of 4-fingered hands, and half of these parts being nightmare themed. Look, I'm not usually scared when I actually talk about these things, okay? I might play it up for the camera and for entertainment purposes, you know, boom, hyper energy. But yeah, this is actually terrifying, and I'm not going to sleep tonight. I don't know what sadistic mother with this idea. The earliest one I can see is by Molten500 on DeviantArt, but I could be wrong. Either way, please make it stop. That's all the time we have for today, friends. Thank you all so much for watching. I have been Sean Monroe, and I'll see you in another video. Whoop-oh!